вечер, дорогие друзья. Очень рада, что вы нашли время сегодня присоединиться к нашему семинару. Меня зовут Анастасия, со мной моя коллега Ольга. Мы представляем компанию Insight Lingua и являемся представительством University of the Arts London в России. Соответственно, все вопросы, связанные с поступлением в этот вуз, подбором правильной образовательной программы, подготовкой документов, портфолио и так далее, можно адресовать к нам. И, собственно, мы здесь для того, чтобы студентам из России, поступающим в этот университет, помогать со всеми необходимыми вопросами, задачами и так далее. Их достаточно много. Одна британская студенческая виза чего стоит. Ну и с нами сегодня Кейт Scully из University of the Arts London, которая проведет для вас семинар на такую важную тему, как процессы исследования и развития проектов. Это очень полезно для тех, кто собирается поступать, в принципе, в любой творческий вуз, где необходимо портфолио для подготовки к такому поступлению.
My name's Kate Scully and I'm based at CCW, Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon. And this PowerPoint is really about the research and process that underpins your work. We're looking at the different ways that you can develop your ideas. So it's to progress your ideas and your projects, to further your own practice. And this is a very, very general presentation. So we're mainly thinking about students who are probably coming out of school and maybe thinking of pre-degree or foundation or undergraduate. But we do mention postgraduate work as well. I tend to focus more on a specialist postgraduate work in a different presentation. But we've got examples of the UAL best practice and thinking about research within course curricula and also individual or collaborative projects. So it helps you to think about what you're going to need, how you develop your ideas through reflective practice, self-directed study and experimentation. For pre-degree applicants, we hope to see evidence of some of your research and your interests through sketchbooks, journals and development work. Thinking about how contemporary critical thought but also historical study can help develop your work. And then also developing your communication skills based on how you've researched and your experimentation, but also how you put that into practice and how you then communicate that to your audience or your tutors. So for undergraduate applicants, we want to still see the evidence of the same types of research, but obviously it'll be a bit more specialised. We want to be able to see the evidence of your primary and secondary research that have informed all of your ideas. And we also want to see that trail that you've made, how you gather your research and how you document what you've been doing and how you've put it together. And we also want to see a range of different methods, the process and material-led investigation. So it can be all sorts of different experimentation. And for postgraduate applicants, it should be much more focused, because this is where you're going to be setting your own agenda, and we want a much more analytical approach to the research. So it should be both creative and research-based projects that show not only your making skills and your cognitive skills, but also problem solving and your experimentation. And students are encouraged along a path of personal critical discovery. So this begins with individual research interests. I'll have a break in between each of the sections with imagery from our archives, and this is from the MA Interior Spatial Design at Camberwell. And so we go into the research section now. So what is research? Yes, you can research in a library, but there are many other ways of researching. We have 6 libraries across all 6 sites of the university, and there's a wealth of information and archival work in each one. So what is it? What's research? It's valuable at any study level. It's your process of inquiry, your curiosity. You want to know the answer to a question. How is this made? Who makes it? Who is this artist? Can I do it? All of those questions, and it can take different forms. So your own primary research is your own drawing, your own note making, your own photography. Secondary research would be what you found in the library, or maybe through interviews, or maybe at art galleries. And we want to be able to see, the types of research and the types of different formats that you've thought about. So you could research into historical, technical, cultural, political, or you could research through material development. So it could be how you explore a particular process. Maybe as a ceramicist, you might want to explore different glazes, or a particular type of material, or a particular type of making. So you're constantly testing, experimenting, and noting down what works, what doesn't, what's the best approach, and document all of those findings. So this becomes your own archive, your own experimentation and your own findings, and you can start to really utilize that information. So why research? So it could be for a set project. Your tutors may have set you a particular project in your course, and you're given maybe a reading list, or a particular artist, or a type of process to think about and consider. So that might be the starting point, but it might be a subject that interests you and that you want to study in depth. So we want to see your curiosity and that journey. So think about what's the subject, what is the context, and how are you going to do it? Where do you find that information? And which research methods and resources will you use? And the more you do this, the more practiced you become, and it becomes part of the way that you work. So gathering your first thoughts and ideas. So it can be simple pages in your sketchbook, it can be worksheets. It's gathering images that interest you, that are a response to the brief that you've been given. It can be a mixture of written work, your own drawings, photographs, and things that you've found as well. Think about your ideas and inspirations, so include both primary and secondary research, and read around your subject area. It's almost like following clues, and explore a range of different sources of material. Many art galleries have good libraries, they have good archives, and you can get permission to use them. There are also ways of researching that may not necessarily mean approaching a library. It can be if you're, say, a fashion retail student, then you're going to be doing a lot of research on your own, looking at shops, looking at the way that products are displayed, and how they're priced and what the markets are. But you can also approach those different brands and companies for information. So it might be that you're researching through interviews. So explore and experiment with different materials and processes, and start to present your research and your idea development so that your journey is clear. And at this point, you will start to see what research you can use and what may be just simply archived, and you'll start to make a sort of ordered sense of it. Think about the subject area. or context. So it may be that it's a response to current cultural, social, political, environmental, or economic debates. And if it's something like environmental, then students say in the interior spatial design courses, the architecture courses, the textiles and fashion courses, they're all conscious of sustainability, they're conscious of material use. So a lot of research will be gathered around that particular area. Personal visual research is very important, and it helps your visual literacy. How confidently you're putting images together and gathering information. And obviously an engagement with what's happening in a contemporary mode, but also what happened historically, and do the two connect? Knowledge exchange, dialogues and conversations are hugely important. So your classmates, your tutors and people you meet all provide great information, and it's interesting to discuss as well, and it starts to help you to refine your ideas. So gathering references and identifying connections. So a response to current debates, so it could be, as we mentioned before, anything from cultural and social to environmental and economic debates. For instance, this image is from LCC, and it's also used, or it was, on the UAL Climate Action Plan webpage. So we're using a lot of images generated by our students simply to illustrate usage as well. So research, materials and process, and we want you to be able to document how you're making things. This is actually an MA student from LCF's footwear course, and we want to be able to see what materials you're going to be using, how you've solved problems, but evidencing your knowledge, how you develop an understanding of the materials that you have to use, or the processes, whether it's something like the stitching or the mold making or the glazing or the finishing, how you produce those products that you're making. So we want to see any investigation into sustainable or ethical approaches, but document each stage, because when you come to maybe another project, you might find that there are similarities or parallels, and you will be able to use the information you gathered and the research you made and think, I know how to solve this problem. So it becomes your information library. So this is the BA Interior and Spatial Design course at Camberwell, and the students began a collaboration with IED Kunstal in Bilbao, Spain, during the COVID lockdown. And it started off as an online collaboration. Now the students from Camberwell visit Bilbao, and the Bilbao students come to Camberwell, and they have joint projects. But I believe that is still on the website for that course. So it's quite a useful connection, and a very, very, I think, fruitful connection as well. Research can be working with a community, so that you're not just in an art school that is on its own and not connected with its community. You might work with charities, you might work with local community groups, and planning and thinking and developing ways that your skills can actually help to engage with local communities and local residents. So it's almost like a sort of an outreach. You're not a rarefied artist designer, you're part of that community. So going into the process side, so this is from the BA Costume for Theatre and Screen at Wimbledon, and this is a typical materials sketchbook. So this is the trials and the problem solving of the fabrics that the students are going to be making or using or dyeing or treating to create a particular costume. Think of your worksheets, your sketchbooks and digital tools as an area for experimentation and problem solving. I always think of sketchbooks as a sort of a brain dump. Everything you're thinking, you put in, and you've got it on record because it's so easy to forget. So you can include, if you like to work in sketchbooks, that's great. Some people prefer worksheets. Some people use more, digital tools for pulling their ideas and solving problems. So any of that, any evidence that you have for developing your ideas, thinking of your ideas, and documenting processes is you need to sort of make sure that you're recording it. So include image references, notes, annotations, collected ephemera, materials, drawings, photographs. And some students have numerous sketchbooks or notebooks or journals on the go at the same time. It might be for particular topics or particular projects that they're using them for. But the working journals become your reference library. These are personal to you, but it indicates for the tutors and for us your working process, your thinking process, and we can see that personality working through a project. It's really quite interesting to see. So process making a material, so as I mentioned before, it could be in the ceramic studios, it could be an interior design or architecture studio, but it equally could be in the textiles, in the graphic design, in the printmaking, the photography, and the fine art studios as well. So document your primary and secondary research and fill your sketchbook with those rough ideas and first thoughts. They may be just jettisoned, within a week, but it's always interesting to put everything down as soon as you can, because it is very, very easy to forget or to miss or sort of lose those first ideas. And think about it through a different type of media. You can investigate varieties of different ways of developing ideas and include any short descriptions or notes or annotations. More process, so it's a textile student. We teach in a reflective manner at UAL, and you'll experiment with your idea generation techniques, but think about the importance of the self-reflection and evaluation. That's ongoing. So you take a step back from all of your work and look as objectively as possible and see if you think that an idea is working. And the more you do this, the more you can start to really self-evaluate confidently and knowingly. And it helps to support the way that you're working through different approaches. And you can build your own creative processes reflecting on what you learned from one project to help inform future practice. And learn to present your research and idea development clearly so that that journey is clear both to you but also to the tutors. Okay, so going on to development. So this is an image from London College of Fashion, and the student here is actually cutting patterns, but he's got lots of information in his folder that you can see, so he's working from the drawings, but he's also got range plans and pattern information digitally created online. Development, evidence a range of early responses, ideas, options and choices that you have. And also think about the working out and any experimental processes, including the problem solving. Some things need to be tried and tested. Some things don't work. And I think it's a really useful thing to be able to either find that an approach or an experiment isn't working as well as you were hoping, but you, with the reflective processes and the documentation, you start to learn how things can be resolved and how things can be improved. And this is all evidenced in your documentation, your development process. So it can be anything from the texture of making your own paints. It can be anything from the way that it is put on the canvas. It can be dye experiments. It can be using the right mordant. It can be the way that you're using something as a graphic process or photographic process. So record your progress from the initial thoughts and doodles to a more finished and refined piece of work. So you can think about alternatives that can create unexpected results, and it helps you to start to refine your ideas and review your working practice, whether something can be improved, or maybe you've just made a mess of it and you have to backtrack and go back to the beginning or where it began to go wrong. Development, so we have a fine art student on the left, and he is sort of part of the sort of sculpture subject area, and then we've got product and industrial design on the right at Central St Martin's. More development, printmaking, these are both at LCC. And development and outcome, this is theatre design at Wimbledon. So this is the final outcome. A student has created a small to scale theatre set, and there are lots and lots of drawings and ideas to support this. This is London College of Fashion, and this was a visual merchandising student who created very similar ideas to a theatre set, but using small frames. So each one has the potential to be maybe a window or retail display. So these are quick ideas as he's developing his work. Developing an outcome, this is the Technical Arts BA at Wimbledon. So it's developing the three-dimensional sculptures that are quite often life-size, that are used in films and on stage. So it's from the moulds for the faces right the way through to the life-size figure sitting at her dressing table. So, thinking about, this is the Central St Martin's Textile Library. So think about making sense of the research. It's very, very easy to get carried away with research and just have lots and lots of research that you don't know what to do with. So think about the thinking part and the making part as connected research processes. So one leads to the other, and they both support each other. So consider what the potential and also the limitations are of maybe traditional or innovative approaches. It may be a mixture of the two that is the optimum for you. You can move ideas forward and play with them by analysing and retesting, sampling, and maybe considering alternatives. So this is that reflective practice being put to good use. So you're taking a step back and thinking, how can I improve this? You can explore diverse materials and unexpected options to push that idea forward and develop your knowledge of the material and knowledge of the subject as well. And also the action research. So you're putting this into action. You're road testing it, you're trialing it, maybe with a market, maybe with people. So don't worry about imperfection. When we look through portfolios, we don't want to see absolutely everything beautifully presented. That's great, but if it's not quite perfect, but it tells us the story of your design journey or your fine art journey, the process is as important as the outcome. It's lovely to see finished outcomes, but it's really interesting for us to be able to see how you have worked your way through this particular project. So present it as logically as possible, the research, the development and the outcome, with examples from your supporting worksheets, journals, sketchbooks, photographs, doodles, experimentation. And if you're using secondary sources as part of your research, like images maybe of a particular artist's work, then do credit the artist or designer. Any interests and influences, look at both contemporary and historically relevant work. On the top, we have a costume that was made as part of a collaboration with the Wimbledon costume for theatre and screen, and also the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square in London. And they were showing an exhibition of the Renaissance artist Lorenzo Lotto. And the project was to recreate or reinterpret costumes seen in some of the paintings, and there was an event to record that. The artist below is a fine art student who was looking at contemporary photography as part of her story. So you can think about, different cultural movements and connections and influences across the different disciplines. So what are you interested in? We like to know this. So if you like to go to museums and galleries, performances, music, film or photography, great. Not everybody has the opportunity or is in the right location to access these. So we want to know what you're interested in and how you develop your ideas. It may be something cultural, it may be something environmental, it may be a social issue, it may be a political issue, but we want to see, what's happening in your environment, what are you responding to? So make a note of your surroundings, the light, the colour, the shapes, the texture, the sounds, the smells, the atmosphere, and experiment with your visual language. This is a student that was studying on the BA Interior Spatial Design course at Camberwell, and he was interested in new technologies, digital technologies, but also greener cities. But in the end, he created a game. So he wasn't a games design student, he was an interior spatial design student. But the game was quite successful, and this is one of the images that he created digitally. And it was a dystopian view of a polluted city. Your learning journey. So we look for potential, not just beautifully finished pieces, but we want to see that journey of your curiosity and discovery and what you did with that. So we're interested in how you researched and what you researched, but also how you processed that information and what was the outcome. Sometimes it can be a complete surprise, even to the designer, even to you. And initial ideas and problem solving and the material exploration are all vital. So worksheets, journals, sketchbooks are an important part of the way that you document your work and think. So this is an illustration student with her great big boots marching across the London landscape. So for portfolio advice, you can access arts.ac.uk/portfolio, and we do also give portfolio advice. We have advisory sessions online at various times of the year, but there is a dedicated series of videos on our website. And this is an overview of, if you're thinking about, what interests you, what your research areas are. So, you can think about the subject. You might be thinking about researching perhaps for a textiles degree. So what's the subject area that interests you? What past and historical references influence your work? Are there any contemporary influences in your work? And then you can think about, what does research mean to you? Or how do you document your primary and secondary research? And it's a very simple way of, I think, making a logical idea plan of how you can research. Okay, then.
Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you, Anastasia. Good to
I hope
see
it
you.
helps a lot for students preparing for their applications.
Oh, we look forward to seeing them.
Я хотела буквально 2 слова сказать тем, кто вот сейчас в 11 классе IB учится, те, кто собирается поступать осенью, ранней осенью. Следите, пожалуйста, за нашей рассылкой. Раз вы здесь, значит, вы эту рассылку получаете. То есть и осенью обязательно постарайтесь попасть на вступительное собеседование, которое проводится специально для того, чтобы предварительно координаторы университета смогли посмотреть и проанализировать ваше портфолио, дать вам советы по его доработке. Это очень сильно повышает шансы на поступление. Да, и курс подготовки портфолио в Москве проходит. Если вы в Москве, если вам это нужно, то у нас он будет, он регулярный и очный, специально для поступления в University of Deutschland.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.